has struck midnight for the old order of the Middle East, and as the dust settles over the smoking ruins of Tehran, the world is beginning to realize that the red lines we once relied upon have been permanently deleted. On the morning of Saturday, February 28, 2026, a date that will forever be etched in the annals of modern warfare, the United States and Israel launched a coordinated assault of such staggering scale that it redefined the concept of a preemptive strike. We were told this was Operation Epic Fury, a mission designed to neutralize a nuclear threat and decapitate a regime that had long defied the West. But as the first waves of 200 Israeli fighter jets screamed across Iranian airspace, targeting over 500 locations in a single morning, the calculations of every major global power were thrown into a violent tailspin. The centerpiece of this operation was a daytime strike of unprecedented audacity, specifically timed for a moment when American and Israeli intelligence confirmed that Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was meeting with his top military and political echelon. They hit the target with 30 precision munitions, reducing the sprawling compound on Pasteur Street to smoldering rubble. Within hours, reports began to circulate that the man who had ruled Iran for 36 years was no longer alive, his body reportedly recovered from the wreckage. Along with him, 40 senior commanders, including the defense minister and the head of the Revolutionary Guard, were effectively erased from the board. For a brief moment, Washington and Tel Aviv believed they had won. They expected a rapid collapse, a psychological surrender that would lead to the installation of a new, friendly administration in Tehran. But they forgot one critical variable: the shadowy hand of Moscow. Even as the presidential palace burned, intelligence reports began to leak regarding a secret Russian shipment that had arrived in the final hours before the blockade tightened what analysts are calling sovereign tech. This isn't just hardware. It is a suite of advanced electronic warfare and autonomous command protocols designed to bypass traditional air defense and maintain a fighting force even after its brain has been removed. While the United States celebrates a tactical victory, the strategic reality is that Iran has activated its Mosaic Defense System, a decentralized guerrilla-style operation that allows 31 autonomous provinces to function independently of any central command. The red lines are gone because there is no longer a single leader to negotiate with, no central body to call for a ceasefire, and no pause button on the devastation. We are no longer watching a standard conflict. We are entering the final hour of regional stability. The consequences of this deleted red line are already manifesting in a rain of fire across the Gulf. Iran did not wait for the smoke to clear before launching Operation True Promise 4, a massive retaliatory barrage of ballistic missiles and drones targeting every nation that hosts a United States military presence. From the Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain to the Al Dhafra Air Base in the United Arab Emirates, explosions are rocking the foundations of the global oil economy. The world's busiest logistics hubs, including Dubai International Airport, have been shuttered indefinitely, turning the region into a logistical black hole. Even as President Trump boasts of virtually unlimited munitions, his own military is facing a brutal war of attrition where billion-dollar interceptors are being exhausted by waves of cheap, sovereign-assisted drones. The era of controlled escalation is over. This is a total war, fueled by technology that ensures the fire will keep burning long after the leaders who started it are in their graves. The decapitation of the Iranian leadership was intended to be the final chapter, but it has instead acted as the preface to a much more terrifying volume. As the United States and Israel attempt to quantify their success, they are realizing that the adversary they struck has undergone a fundamental transformation. This is the first real-world manifestation of what defense specialists are calling sovereign tech, a sophisticated layer of Russian-assisted military architecture that allows a nation to fight as a headless organism. By integrating autonomous command protocols and advanced electronic warfare, Iran has effectively deleted the traditional red line of centralized control. On March 1, 2026, the activation of the Mosaic Defense Strategy officially decentralized the Iranian state into 31 autonomous tiles. Each province now operates as an independent fortress, directed by lower-level commanders who have been given full authority to launch ballistic missiles and engage in asymmetric warfare without a signal from the central command in Tehran. This strategic evolution means that the decapitation strike, while tactically flawless, has created a scenario where there is no one left to sign a treaty and no one left to order a stand-down. This deletion of order has sent a violent shockwave through the global energy market. The Strait of Hormuz, the 21-mile-wide choke point that handles 20% of the world's daily oil supply, is now a graveyard for maritime trade. Iran has fulfilled its promise to block the strait, declaring that any ship attempting to pass will be blown up or set on fire. In the last few days, only 3 tankers have successfully navigated the passage. leading to a de facto closure that has paralyzed the flow of crude and liquefied natural gas. The results are catastrophic. Gas prices in Europe have surged by more than 50%, and Brent oil has already hit $80 per barrel, with analysts warning it could soon reach $150. Paradoxically, the greatest beneficiary of this American-led escalation is Russia. As Middle Eastern supplies are cut off, Russian crude has become the most sought-after commodity on the planet, providing Moscow with the financial leverage it needs to continue its own geopolitical maneuvers. The moral and humanitarian fallout is equally devastating. In the southern town of Manab, a girls' primary school was reduced to rubble by a missile strike, leaving over 140 people dead, including 110 students. The images of grieving families have ignited a firestorm of anti-American sentiment that crosses all sectarian lines. By assassinating a revered religious leader during the holy month of Ramadan, the United States has committed a blunder of pope-like proportions, turning a tyrant into a martyr and unifying a divided population against a common enemy. Already, 6 American service members have been confirmed dead in retaliatory strikes, and the Pentagon is warning that many more will follow as Iran targets U.S. bases across the Gulf. The red line of limited conflict has been deleted, replaced by a brutal war of attrition that is draining the munitions and the patience of the world's most powerful military. As the fires rage in Tehran, the internal architecture of the American presidency is beginning to fracture under the weight of a conflict that no one truly understands. The justification for this war, once sold as a surgical necessity to end a nuclear threat, is falling apart in the halls of the United States Congress. Lawmakers are openly calling the administration's reasoning a sham, claiming the intelligence was unsubstantiated and that the American public was lied to. Within Donald Trump's own party, there is a growing sense of betrayal, with former allies calling the administration a bunch of sick liars. The president, who once campaigned on the promise of ending stupid wars, has now authorized the bombing of 7 different countries simultaneously. A recent poll found that 60% of Americans disapprove of the decision to attack Iran, while the president's approval rating has cratered to an unprecedented 27%. This is not just a military campaign, it is a full-blown presidential crisis. Analysts suggest that this massive escalation was a calculated distraction from the Jeffrey Epstein files, a legal detonation that threatened to reach directly into the Oval Office. With over 47,000 files remaining offline for review and allegations of sexual misconduct mounting, the war in Iran provided the perfect wag-the-dog scenario to divert the world's attention. But while Washington is consumed by political scandal, the battlefield is being reshaped by an invisible force. The sovereign tech allegedly provided by Moscow has turned Iran into a technological ghost. Even after the United States and Israel believed they had severed the head of the regime, the body continues to strike with terrifying precision. This decentralized command structure, enhanced by Russian-assisted autonomous protocols, has enabled Iran's military units to enter a weapons-free mode. They are firing independently, without the need for a central decision-making body, making a ceasefire almost impossible to negotiate. The U.S. military is now discovering that making an interceptor missile is far more expensive than the cheap, mass-produced drones being thrown at them. At the current rate of fire, interceptor supplies for the United Arab Emirates and Qatar could be exhausted within 4 to 7 days. The American dream of a quick get-in and get-out operation has evaporated, replaced by the grim reality of another forever war. In the vacuum left by the death of the supreme leader, a new and even more dangerous figure has emerged. The Islamic Republic has reportedly chosen Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the former leader, as the new Ayatollah. He is an extreme hardliner, more radical than his father, and was the man responsible for the brutal massacre of tens of thousands of protesters earlier this year. Instead of the moderate revolution Donald Trump expected, his strikes have martyred the old leader and rallied the Shiite community behind a man who has no interest in peace. The red line of regime change has not led to democracy. It has led to a hardened military-religious dictatorship that is more aggressive and more resistant to dialogue than ever before. This new leadership is utilizing the sovereign tech to mask their movements, making it nearly impossible for Western intelligence to track the remaining 400 kilograms of enriched uranium that vanished from the Fordo facility just 3 days before the bombs fell. The world is no longer just watching a war. It is watching the birth of a new, headless, and indestructible adversary. The technology that deleted the red line was not just found in the debris of Iranian ballistic missiles, it was hidden in the very architecture of the state's intelligence network. For 10 years, the Mossad and the Central Intelligence Agency had deeply penetrated the streets of Tehran, hacking the feeds of traffic cameras and sending encrypted video directly to servers in Tel Aviv. They had perfected what is known in intelligence circles as pattern-of-life analysis, mapping the daily routines of every senior official, their drivers, and their bodyguards with mathematical precision. Algorithms analyzed billions of data points, flagging every unusual movement in real time, creating a target list that was supposed to bring the regime to its knees on day one. But as the bombs fell on Pasteur Street, the American intelligence community was blindsided by the presence of Russian sovereign tech that bypassed these predictive models. This advanced suite of autonomous protocols, arriving just before the total blockade of the region, ensured that the destruction of a central command did not lead to a surrender. Instead, the red line of traditional deterrence was deleted as the world watched Iran transition into a weapons-free mode, where military units fired independently without the need for a central decision-making body. Even as the White House celebrated the tactical success of the decapitation strikes, the strategic reality grew darker. In the days following the assassination of the Supreme Leader, the United States Attorney General was forced to admit under oath that the President had ordered the destruction of critical logs related to the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. This domestic legal detonation revealed a two-tiered system of justice that had been operationalized at the same time a war was being launched abroad. The chaos in the Oval Office mirrored the uncertainty on the battlefield, where the Pentagon's own Defense Intelligence Agency concluded that there was no evidence of an imminent threat from Iran prior to the attack. The claim that Tehran was developing intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of reaching American cities was not supported by the government's own experts. This realization turned the war of choice into a war of survival for the Trump administration, leading to a desperate search for a narrative that could justify the rising count of American casualties. Meanwhile, a dirty game was being played in the oil fields of Saudi Arabia. While initial reports blamed Iranian missiles for hitting the Aramco refinery, new theories suggested the attack might have been orchestrated by Israel to force Riyadh into an open front against Tehran. This complication, currently being investigated by Saudi authorities, threatens to fracture the very coalition the United States relied upon to secure the Middle East. The most dangerous ghost in this machine, however, remains the missing 400 kilograms of uranium, enriched to 60% purity. 16 trucks were seen leaving the Fordo facility just 3 days before the strikes, moving the material to an unknown underground location that no Western satellite has been able to identify. The red line of nuclear nonproliferation has been officially deleted, leaving the world to wonder if the next explosion will be conventional or something far more catastrophic. Air campaigns, history bears witness, never create clean situations, and as the regional war expands, the path to an off-ramp is becoming invisible. The deletion of red lines has transformed the Middle East from a regional theater into a global chessboard where the pieces are moving with terrifying autonomy. While the United States and Israel focus on the kinetic destruction of Tehran's command centers, the real battle is being fought in the vaults of Beijing and the luxury boardrooms of Riyadh. China, the world's largest oil importer, has remained the silent architect of Iranian survival for decades. Despite 1,500 active United States sanctions, the Islamic Republic was preserved by a 25-year strategic partnership known as the China-Iran Strategic Agreement. Beijing buys 80% of Iran's oil, not in dollars, but in yuan, creating a closed-loop system where Iran uses that currency to purchase every necessity from Chinese factories. To the strategists in the White House, the attack on Iran is seen as a direct move to isolate China by cutting off its geopolitical allies, following the pattern established in Venezuela. However, this strategy is backfiring as Beijing now urges Tehran to maintain the flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz, even as they publicly distance themselves from the military fray. The human cost of this high-stakes game is threatening the lifelong dream of Saudi Arabia's crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman. His vision, to transform the Middle East into the new Europe, where business and tourism replace the tag of a mere oil-producing region, is being systematically dismantled by the day. The recent wave of strikes on civilian infrastructure, including hotels in Dubai and airports in Kuwait, has made the region's stability look like a fragile illusion. While Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates publicly condemned Iranian aggression, a sense of private fury is brewing toward Washington for dragging them into an unwinnable war of choice. Suspicion is mounting that the strikes on Saudi oil fields were a dirty game intended to force Riyadh into a coalition they never wished to join. For the 8 million Indians living in the Gulf, the region has become a dangerous hostage situation, where every second the airspace remains closed, the costs to global commerce multiply. As the conflict enters its second week, a more fundamental crisis is emerging: the munitions gap. The United States is reportedly running low on its high-tech munitions, forcing President Trump to call an emergency meeting with executives from Lockheed Martin and Raytheon to accelerate weapons production. The asymmetry is staggering. Iran is able to manufacture its Shahi drones and ballistic missiles for a fraction of the cost of the billion-dollar defensive systems the United States is using to intercept them. In the skies over Israel, The Iron Dome and Patriot systems are being tested by decoy swarms, cheap replicas that force interceptors to fire 6 missiles to stop a single warhead. This is the new age of warfare, where drone technology has rendered traditional air superiority obsolete. India and other global powers are watching with growing alarm, realizing that being the world's largest arms importer is no longer a sign of strength, but a profound vulnerability. The final hour is approaching, and as the sovereign tech continues to mask the movements of the remaining Iranian elite, the world is left to wonder who truly controls the outcome of a war where the red lines have been permanently deleted. As the world stares into the abyss of a region transformed, the ultimate truth of the 2026 conflict is that the red line of traditional statehood has been permanently erased. The sovereign tech of decentralized warfare, the Mosaic Defense Strategy, has proven that a nation can remain a lethal adversary even after its political and military heart has been cut out. By dividing the country into 31 autonomous units capable of independent missile launches and guerrilla operations, the Iranian regime ensured that the assassination of Ayatollah Khamenei would not be the end, but a catalyst for a chaotic, leaderless resistance. This shift has rendered conventional diplomacy obsolete, as there is no central authority left to negotiate a ceasefire or enforce a stand-down. In Washington, the political fallout is reaching a fever pitch, with articles of impeachment fast-tracking through a Congress horrified by the lack of a clear exit strategy. The administration's approval has cratered to 27% as the American public realizes they have been dragged into a war of choice that serves foreign interests while abandoning its own citizens abroad. The economic consequences are no longer a threat. They are a reality that is crushing global markets. With the Strait of Hormuz effectively a graveyard for maritime commerce, the daily flow of 20 million barrels of oil has been choked off, driving global energy prices toward $150 per barrel. This energy shock acts as a double blow to nations like India, where 55% of crude imports are now at risk, threatening massive inflation and trade deficits. While the United States scrambles to replenish its high-tech munitions in emergency meetings with defense contractors, the Iranian arsenal of cheap drones and hypersonic Fatah missiles continues to bleed the coalition dry. The battlefield has become a war of attrition, where the side with the most expensive weapons may be the first to lose. Ultimately, the most terrifying ghost in this deleted red line remains the 400 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium that vanished on 16 trucks just days before the first bombs fell. Western intelligence is blind to its location, while the Islamic Republic's new hardline leadership, centered around Mojtaba Khamenei, uses the chaos to potentially cross the nuclear threshold in secret. History warns that air campaigns alone cannot force a regime change without a devastating ground invasion, and the United States now faces the grim prospect of another forever war, even more costly than Afghanistan. The red line of nuclear non-proliferation is gone, the red line of regional stability is shattered, and the world is now governed by the law of the strong and the technology of the shadows. As the final hour approaches, we must ask if any tactical victory is worth the total deletion of the international order. The fire that was lit in Tehran is now a global conflagration, and the rules of the game have been rewritten in blood and silicon.